War against corruption, National Judicial Council constitutes 15-member committee to investigate judicial officers, including 2 chief judges.
We will continue to encourage and empower creative people who want to take Nigeria to the next level. Information and Culture Minister tells creative industry players as indigenous pay TV comes on board.
The building of this country to government alone. No. It has to be a synergy between the private sector and the public sector.
Abducted Zamfara State Assistant Police Commissioner regains freedom.
On Good Morning Nigeria today, our focus is on Nigeria at 57, search for peace and unity.
Well, today is the first working day of the week after a long holiday period, and it's still in the the euphoria of Independence Anniversary celebration.
Exactly.
Nigerians have been having a good time, you know that.
Exactly, and that brings to fore our topic for conversation this morning on Good Morning Nigeria.
Yeah, Nigerians return to work today after a public holiday to commemorate the 57th Independence Anniversary.
Yes, Cliff, Nigeria will always mark October 1st, that historic day that the Union Jack was lowered for the last time and the green, white, green flag was hoisted as the country gained independence as a sovereign state from Britain.
But Kirian, the period is annually marked to celebrate the independence anniversary. Text Talk can reflect on how far the country has come, and how much has been achieved. And where is it lacking? Where are the challenges? What could be done to really move forward?
Yes, and that's why Good Morning Nigeria started conversation yesterday on the country's checkered political history, where the Minister of Information and Culture and the Senate leader and other panelists discussed Nigeria at 57, search for peace and unity.
And it was indeed a worthwhile discussion, Kirian, as the guests' insights, views and suggestions were not only apt but thought-provoking, but also reflective and developmental.
Exactly, and the response of Nigerians through our interactive platform, the Twitter, showed how enthusiastic our Nigerians were about the discussion and the opinions of the guests.
Well, the conversation continues today with another set of guests whose views will also focus on the country's 57th independence anniversary, the search for peace and unity.
What is indeed the trouble with Nigeria? Why has the unity and stability which are needed and which Nigeria craves seem eluded? To what extent is leadership a major problem in Nigeria? What are the citizens not doing well and should do? Everyone, of course, believes that our dream should be fulfilled, as, of course, as our founding fathers did lay the foundation before now.
Well, these and some other questions we shall try to provide answers on this special Independence edition of Good Morning Nigeria today, coming to you from the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority, Africa's largest television network, the NTA. I am Cliff Ayoze, welcoming you to Good Morning Nigeria and back to work after the holiday.
And I am Kirian Umayo, joining Cliff to welcome you to today's special edition of the program. And as usual, in the course of the program, we will bring you the companion segments, which will, of course, include the newspaper review, business, sports, foreign, and entertainment news. For a start, let's join Anne Jibono, who is our guide on this morning's news. Hello, Anne.
Hello, gentlemen. Good morning. Good morning and welcome to the news. The National Judicial Council, NJC, has constituted a 15-member committee to investigate various allegations against some judicial officers, including 2 chief judges. The council also regarded as a welcome development the acceptance by the Zamfara state government, the NJC's recommendation for the compulsory removal of Justice Musa Ibrahim Anka from office for allegedly receiving a bribe of 200,000 naira from one Zubairu Abdul Malik in order to deliver judgment on the investigation of the judicial officers. The National Judicial Council took the decision to investigate the judges after considering the reports of 2 preliminary complaints assessment committees. The NJC, however, dismissed 31 other petitions, which it found unmeritorious. Nigeria's ambassador to Côte d'Ivoire has been speaking on Nigeria's achievements in education, oil and gas, social development, the fight against insurgency, as well as its significant role in West Africa's regional integration process. Ambassador Ibrahim Isak's comments were while presenting his letter of credence to President Alassane Ouattara on his assumption of duty. The ambassador promised to expand and deepen trade relations, friendship and mutual cooperation and work to take Nigeria-Côte d'Ivoire relations to new heights. The need for tolerance and peaceful coexistence re-echoes as Nigeria marks her 57th independence anniversary. The call was made by diasporans at a grand dinner in celebration of the day at Mayfair, London. Bilkisu Abdurazak Oduoye reports that UK-based Nigerians who had made their mark in fashion, sports, politics, business and entertainment all came together to reflect on how far Nigeria had come.
Though we're working through our challenges.
I can't even stand there and mention all the great people who are Nigerians who are doing great things, not just in the UK, but globally. I'm proud to be a Nigerian. I love being a Nigerian.
And back home, Nigerians from various walks of life in the Federal Capital Territory say there are prospects for a greater Nigeria if national unity is prioritized as a tool for development. Mitaire Ikben, who sorts their views, reports that they believe despite the trajectory of the nation, which has seen it experience moments of highs and lows, Nigeria's unity in diversity is enviable and worth celebrating at 57.
In spite of all the problems here and there, in spite of ethnic problems, in spite of religious problems, we've still remained as one united country.
The diversity in our culture is one aspect that other nations of the world don't have it. 2, abundant human resources, right? Resources in this country, I want to think, on earth, I'm yet to see a country that is so blessed.
And some good news for the creative industry, where the federal government says it will continue to encourage and empower people who are creative and those who want to take the nation to the next level. Minister of Information and Culture, Lai Mohammed, said this at the official launch of TSTV, a cable pay TV in Abuja. Debola Brookslyn Sunday reports that the minister used the opportunity of the launch to challenge those with innovative ideas to pursue greater collaboration that could potentially move the nation forward.
The building of this country to government alone, no. There has to be a synergy between the private sector and the public sector. And what we have done is a giant stride in transforming our creative industry to our creative economy, to be contributing at least 5% to the GDP.
The recently abducted Assistant Commissioner of Police CIID unit, Zamfara State, Emmanuel Agene, has regained freedom from his abductors. Commissioner of Police Agiole Abe disclosed this to journalists in Kaduna. Our correspondent Benny Adams reports that the Assistant Commissioner of Police, his aide and his driver had been abducted on the 27th of September at Maganda village along Funtua Birningwari Road. Constant search and rescue efforts, according to the Kaduna State Police Commissioner, yielded results when the abductors released the victims.
From where this call came from, and from where he believed, because they allowed him to speak with us, thinking we are members of the family. This afternoon, I'm happy to tell you that the officer had been rescued and is in stable condition, and he's in the police facility undergoing checkup.
Well, that's the news for now. Good morning, Nigeria. We'll be back with Cliff and Kirian after this break.
Unemployment, notably youth unemployment, features strongly in our party's manifesto. We intend to attack the problem promptly through revival of agriculture.
The 30K is going a long way. Actually, I bought an acre of land for 60K like 2012, and presently I have a cassava farm and a yam farm.
London, New York or Lagos, business or holiday, home or office. You can now carry out your tax transactions from anywhere in the world. You can now file all your tax returns, pay online, get a receipt, and even process your tax clearance certificate from anywhere in the world online and in real time. All you need to do is log on to www.firs.gov.ng and click on e-services and be introduced to the world of innovation, convenience, and transparency from the FIRS. You can also pay stamp duty as you register a new company with the CAC, or for other transactions that request stamp duty payment online. You can also file your withholding tax returns and determine the withholding tax deducted from you is in government coffers so that you can get your receipt within 45 days as long as the deduction has been remitted. Yes, all of this and more online at www.firs.gov.ng/e-services. FIRS, making tax administration as easy as ABC. Please note that all FIRS services are free of charge. This message is from the Federal Inland Revenue Service. It pays to pay your tax.
We are quick to blame other people, the government, even animals and nature.
Government cannot be responsible for everything. Some of our problems is our own making.
Do you condemn other people for the vices you are guilty of? Do you have genuine papers for your daily dealings?
I have never seen a more useless, dysfunctional, impracticable driver's license. It's not even a passport-size photograph. It's a full size of a human being showing.
The list is endless. This episode is titled, What About You? Join us this week on your rib-cracking comedy, Professor Jumbo, and find out what bothers Godons as you laugh like never before.
I'm supposed to get a award for coping with this kind of living thing.
It's not even a living thing. It's a non-living thing. Over and out.
Brought to you by Glow.
The largest data network. Glow Unlimited.
What makes a nation truly unstoppable? It's being able to push in the face of odds, rise above limitations, and realize that everyone's effort counts when it comes to nation building. What makes us unstoppable? It's when we work together as a team without letting our differences hold us back. There's no stopping the Nigerian dream. Reach for your peak, Nigeria. Happy Independence Day.
Sir Abubakar Tafawa Balewa, Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe, Sir Ahmadu Bello, Chief Obafemi Awolowo.
These patriots worked together to achieve independence for one united Nigeria. Although some may say Nigeria is a mistake, we all know that the Almighty never makes mistakes.
God has not made a mistake by bringing us all together in the way that He has brought us together. God has put us together here so that we can build a community that will be an example to the entire world.
One nation bound in freedom, peace and unity.
Nigeria, one nation, one people.
This is a public service announcement brought to you by NTA.
If you just joined us, this is Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the NTA. Now time to look at business. Economic experts see 57th independence anniversary as another avenue to review Nigeria's economy, propose a way forward with the private sector joining hands with the federal government to move the nation forward. For details of this and more on business news, Joy Uzo is our guide.
Welcome to Business News. Financial institutions across the country resumed business today after the public holiday declared Monday by the federal government to mark Nigeria's 57th independence. Stakeholders in the Nigeria's trade and manufacturing sector have re-emphasized the need to return Nigeria to the pathway of sufficiency through non-oil exports. In an interview with NTA Business News at the ongoing Abuja International Trade Fair, they say at 57, Nigeria's private and public sector must partner and join hands with the government to move the economy forward through diversification.
We can go back to recession easily if we do not double our efforts about really diversifying our economy. I know government is doing a little bit, but you see, it has to do much, much more. How? Open the doors. Make business work easy. Open the doors and get out of the way of business.
A cursory review of Nigeria's economic history revealed the challenges faced over the years leading to economic recession, occasioned by a fall in global oil prices and other issues that have affected the economy drastically. The government have since been strategizing and exploring different ways to restore the economy, and the role of the private sector has been strategic in the move to revive the economy. Garba El Suleiman believes the private sector has continued to play the critical role of investing in different sectors of the economy and creation of jobs across Nigeria and Africa, which to a large extent contributed to seeing Nigeria out of economic recession.
So we first have to believe in the country, and we have to believe in ourselves and what we can produce in the country. And like I said, we also have, as manufacturers, the responsibility because the consumer wants the best. And so we also have to continuously improve and ensure that the product that we are giving Nigerians are at the standard, not Nigerian standard as some people will call it, or African standard as well. There's nothing African or Nigerian. There's only one standard, and that is global, world standard. And that's what we stand for.
With a fragile growth level that has seen Nigeria slip out of economic recession, the stakeholders urged the federal government to sustain its efforts at improving ease of doing business in the country so as to attract more investors into the economy. Commercial banks can no longer take short message service SMS charges on bulk bank transfers done through the real-time gross settlement (RTGS). The real-time gross settlement (RTGS) is an interbank funds transfer system on real-time basis and gross. Settlement in the real-time means that the transaction takes place almost immediately. According to data from the industry, the banks were previously charging 4 naira per transaction or text message fee on all bulk transfers, but were directed by the Central Bank of Nigeria to halt such fees in the interest of customers. The CBN's directive has further cut banks' multiple revenue streams that form a major part of the huge profits they declared in recent years. And finally, on business news, Libya's oil production slumped to a 5-month low as the North African supplier's biggest field stopped pumping crude just weeks after reopening from an earlier unplanned halt. The OPEC members' output dropped to 750,000 barrels a day from 985,000 after an armed group forced workers at the Sharara field to stop pumping. A person familiar with the situation said, asking not to be identified because they lack authorization to speak to the media. Sharara produced about 235,000 barrels a day before the halt, the person said. The halt at Sharara is yet another reminder of the challenges Libya faces in trying to restore and maintain oil output after years of internal conflict. The country, which holds Africa's largest crude reserves, is currently producing at its lowest level since April, data compiled by Bloomberg show. Libya was pumping 1.05 million barrels a day in August, just before armed men closed a pipeline linking the field to a port and causing Sharara to halt pumping for more than 2 weeks. That's it on Business News. I am Joy Uzo.
Thank you, Joy Uzo, for keeping us up to speed with developments in the business world. Time now for newspaper review on Good Morning Nigeria in a moment.
Yes, Bayo Atoyabi just joined us now, our newspaper reviewer. Bayo, good morning and welcome.
Thank you, Kirian. Good morning. Yeah. Good morning, Cliff.
Well, thank you, Bayo, for being here. A lot on the newspapers this morning, yes. Just after the holiday. Now we have the authority. On the authority this morning is written 2019 Southeast PDP backs zoning of presidency to the north. And that's on the front page with another report there. NJC probes 15 judges for malpractices. Is at the lower part of the authority. We have a picture story from Vice President Dr. Alex Ekweme, Southeast Zonal PDP Chairman Chief Austin Umeha, Governor Ifeanyi Ugwanyo of Enugu State, his Abia State counterpart, Dr. Okezie Ikpeazu, and others at a very special meeting of the PDP. And on top of the nameplate of the authority this morning, we have Patience Jonathan petitions Buhari, accuses Magu of witch hunt, with details on page 2 of the authority. Also, we have civil war, how Igbo man who saved my life was killed, Governor Lalong. Details on page 4, and Obaze to dedicate 10% of Anambra budgets to private schools. Details still on page 4 of the authority. And Petard begins verification of Nikon Nigeria re-pensioners. And we have also other stories there. Restructuring on the blueprint. On the blueprint, we have unpaid salaries. Restructuring means nothing to Nigerian workers. NLC, running out of patience over minimum wage. We also have the picture story there, special parade and change of guards by the Nigerian Army Presidential Guards Brigade to mark Nigeria's 57th Independence Day celebration at the Presidential Villa in Abuja yesterday. At the lower part of blueprint this morning, we have Zamfara High Court judge fired over 200,000 naira bribe, with details on page 6 of blueprint. Hajj 2017, all Nigerian pilgrims back home, NACON. And we also will have details on page 16 of the blueprint. And girl plans on abduction with lover, 200,000 naira ransom, with details on page 14. The last there we have dead animals caused cholera outbreak in KB, Bagudu. With details of that on page 9. Also, we have 50 killed, 515 injured at Las Vegas.
We're shooting
tragic concert shooting.
One shooting too many. Bio, come in here. You know, there's a lot of stories already, you know, trending on the pages of newspaper.
Actually, there was a musical concert in a Las Vegas hotel, and this man. From the 32nd floor pick up his gun.
Of a hotel?
Yes, of a hotel. There are conflicting reports. Some report 59 dead, some say 50 dead, but about 529 were said to have been injured. They later found him dead in his hotel room. He has apparently shot himself. But it's been described as the worst mass killing in recent American history.
And he used an automatic rifle.
He used automatic rifle. He had 19 more in his room, in the hotel room. When they search his property, they still find some guns there. He has no military background.
About 34
he has no military background. He has no relations with terrorists. And the President of America is lamenting
what
that.
What could happen to somebody like that? The younger brother of the person suspected to have carried out this act was alarmed at it. He said, it could have been my children, you know, being shot like that. Yes. What could have gone wrong with my brother? Well, they couldn't just reconcile it because he had no, police said they had no history, no records of
and the American president described it as purely evil.
Okay, let's move to what is Nigeria. We still have the restructuring, meaning nothing to NLC and running out of patience of a minimum wage.
Yes, the Nigerian Labour Congress is concerned and is saying that restructuring, yes, but it will mean nothing if nothing is done to stop what he described as the political elite and the bureaucratic elite continue to loot the treasury and stealing the nation blind. He also raised another alarm that they have raised alarm that current minimum wage has elapsed and nothing is being done about it. If nothing is done about it and they don't reconstitute the committee, NLC is going to resume and ground the whole nation when they begin their strike.
And NJC, on the other hand, is, I think, anti-corruption war is catching up with the judiciary with the request for removal of Zamfara High Court judge. Who has been fired, you know, over 200,000 naira bribe.
Yes. I think
because this request was made by National Judicial Council.
Yes, it was. They also set up a committee. In fact, they have the agency set up 15 committees to investigate various
15-member committee.
15-member committee to investigate various allegations against judicial officers, and this includes 2 chief judges too. However, there were other 46 petitions which the agency dismissed for what they describe as being very unmeritorious. 2 others also petitions were withdrawn. But this tallies with the recent development. You will recall that the CJN actually set up a special courts, at least 2, 1 or 2 in all the states, specifically to be dedicated to corruption. And with this development, it means that the judiciary too is up and doing.
But has that been constituted now? The special courts is yet to be constituted.
Well, the instructions of the Chief Justice of Nigeria was that the chief judges of all the states should designate 1 or 2 courts as special courts.
All right, we still have the Independent here, Independent newspaper, and above the nameplate on Independent newspaper this morning, we have restructuring can't solve Nigeria's problem. This is attributed to Kuka, like Bishop Kuka, to Professor Utomi, and of course the NLC. The story, full details, is on page A4 of the Daily Independent. And now, the main news, the major headline this morning on Independent is the NJC panels. Well, Cliff read that in one of the national dailies. The NJC panels to prove 2 CJs and 13 judges. Zamfara Uke's sack of Justice Anka, over 200,000 naira bribe. Then another writer here, lawyers commend Chief Justice for action. Details on page 5. And besides the photograph, we have SGF. Buhari should release report, says Sheikh Husani. Now, once failure may mar AP's chances in 2019. Now, this is coming from Sheikh Husani, who is also a member of the party. Maybe Bayo will comment on that. And now, below the photograph, EFCC, call EFCC to order. Patience Jonathan appeals to Buhari. With 2 writers there, accuses Ibrahim Magu of witch hunt, and the Ekiti government says arrest of Commissioner Accountant General unconstitutional. We've read about the 59 people who were killed in Las Vegas shooting. Now, Bayo, what do you make of this? Call EFCC to order. Patience Jonathan appeals to Buhari. What does that mean?
Before you comes in, we still have this other writing on this day. The NJC thing is still dominating the front page of most newspapers. NJC says sub-panels to probe 15 judges for corruption. And Zamfara approves sack of Justice Anka over 200,000 naira bribe. On top of the nameplate, we have federal government set to release second tranche of capital budget. Well, that story is there with more on it on page 35. And Dangote, rumor of 10-year tax holiday granted me preposterous, untrue, with details on page 36 of This Day Today. And the lower part of This Day, we have Army commences Operation Crocodile Smile 2 in South-South, with details of it on page 37. I think you need to come in here now.
Yes, like Cliff was pointing out, there has been objection by the former First Lady that the EFCC's inquisition into her activities is becoming a preponderance, and therefore she raised an objection to President Muhammadu Buhari. You will recall that there was a time her account was frozen and it became a subject of court. So it's safer to leave the court to deal with that. The other is the one you mentioned about the Ekiti. There was the Commissioner for Finance for Ekiti and the Accountant General of the state, who was on the two of them were on the EFCC radar, but they couldn't get at them. EFCC claimed they had summoned them, but they refused to recognize the summons. So when they came to Abuja for a function, the EFCC took them. But the law requires that when you take such persons, within 48 hours, they are supposed to be charged to court, except you have permission from court to hold them for purposes of investigation beyond that time. But the positive news is about the budget. The Federal Ministry of Finance is set to release about 2.1 trillion, which is the second tranche for the capital budget for 2017. You will recall that the first release was 366 billion, and that was in August. When the National Assembly resumed, the Senate raised concern that there's been delay in release of budget, and it was predicated on the fact that we are currently in October, the 10th month of the year, and they felt that we had only 2 months to the end of the year, and there was delay. But however, the Minister of Finance corrected that. The budget, if you will recall, was signed by the acting president, as he then was, on June 6th. And therefore, the release that was made by the Ministry of Finance in August was for first quarter. So now that we are in October, we are in the second quarter of the budget.
When can this financial year be balanced to end by December? Because historically speaking, there's always a spillover. You know, budgeting has never been so well articulated to, you know, come within a specific year, for instance. You know, it always spills over to the next year. So somehow it becomes so difficult.
But Kieran, I think the current administration is making efforts to ensure that they present the budget sometime this month or early next month.
In fact, it was a specific instruction by the acting president.
Gave directive.
By the acting president.
They need to normalize
that. The budget for this year, 2018, will be presented to the National Assembly in October. So we are waiting to the end of this month. And the whole idea was to go back to the January to December cycle. Well, but don't forget, there is a law of the National Assembly that says that the day the president assents to the budget have a life cycle of 12 months. So whether you like it or not, since the budget 2017 was signed on June 6th, it has a lifespan up to 5th of June.
But the issue is, you know, it affects, you know, planning by other these things.
Because already it's envisaged that when it gets to the time it gets to the National Assembly, it does not even determine how soon that will be out, because the National Assembly also have to do its own job on the budget before taking it back to the presidency. Well, now, let's look at...
secondly, Kieran, because you know that the procurement process is so cumbersome. Because once the project is approved, you know how long it takes to approve a particular project. So that kind of comes into...
Should we be trapped in the compartment of time? When I was growing up, the budget in this country was starting in April of every year.
Okay, so let's quickly look at the new Telegraph, the last paper we have here this morning. Above the nameplate, we have 10,000 contractors bid for jobs in Agric Ministry. With the rider, Obe, that's the Minister of Agriculture, procurement delaying utilization of 30 billion naira budget. That's what I've just raised a short while ago. Procurement delaying. These are the cumbersome nature of what Cliff was talking about. And then below the nameplate, we have IPOB threatens to sue Carlo over Kano's whereabouts, page 6. Then gunmen kill the Sun circulation rep on page 8. Then, of course, we'll read this one.
Kirian, we're getting signaled to take a break.
But let's complete this because there is this 2019 Southeast PDP endorsing Northern Presidency, and Omahi to the party members, don't insult Buhari.
Well, we wish you have more time to really reflect on this. I think some of them we've done already. That's where we'll be taking a break and say special thanks to Bayo Atoyobi for being here always, to interact and reflect on what is trending in Nigerian newspapers. We'll be back in a moment. This is Good Morning Nigeria.
Hate speech is not a joke. It incites genocide and crimes against humanity. Most of Africa's civil wars are caused by hate speech from one tribe against another. We don't want it here. The Nigerian government stands firm against hate speech.
I was distressed to notice that some of the comments, especially in the social media, have crossed our national red lines by daring to question our collective existence as a nation. This is a step too far.
One nation bound in freedom, peace and unity.
Nigeria, one nation, one people.
This is a public service announcement brought to you by NTA.
Marketing in broadcasting requires some degree of specialized knowledge and skills, and it is a recognition of these that NTA Television College JAS is organizing an intensive 4-week course on modern trends in broadcasting media marketing. The course is going to be a knowledge-sharing class with emphasis on how best to meet the expectations of customers while remaining profitable. All participants will be exposed to emerging trends in broadcasting media marketing, aimed at equipping participants with new and robust skills in challenges of modern competition in the broadcast media marketing in Nigeria. Date 9th October to 4th November 2017. Venue NTA Television College, Rayfield, Jos. Fee 100,000 naira per participant. Accommodation inclusive. For more enquiries, contact us on 0806 980 9807, 0703 660 7155, or email us at ntacollege@gmail.com. NTA Television College, training you to be the best you can be.
The Nigeria of our dreams is our collective responsibility.
Take advantage of the Voluntary Assets and Income Declaration Scheme, VADES. Declare your full assets and income and regularize your tax status with VADES, which is on from July 1st, 2017 till March 31st, 2018. It attracts no interest, no penalty, no tax prosecution, and no tax audit. Declare early to avoid interest and penalties. Visit www.vase.gov.ng or the nearest tax office for more information. This message is brought to you by the Federal Government, Federal Inland Revenue Service, and States Boards of Internal Revenue. VADES, I declare, my duty, my nation.
Why don't you people sell imported materials here? As beautiful as the shop is.
Auntie, buying foreign goods does not help our economy. Neither does it boost local production. And the good thing is Nigerian-made products are high quality. And to make Nigeria great again, that is why I only sell made in Nigeria products. Because change begins with me.
I'm convinced. Change begins with me too.
Change begins with me.
This message is brought to you by the National Orientation Agency in conjunction with the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
Another edition of TV Guide magazine is out with revealing accounts of trending stories. With the dwindling oil revenue, he says there is no reason to worry.
We strongly believe that culture is Nigerians' new oil, and we're going to show that by creating wealth, our art and culture will be a statement for all of us.
Our cover story is on Otumba Olusegun Runchewe, Director General, National Council for Arts and Culture. For upcoming TV presenters, elegant Elizabeth Banu tells you what it takes. A peep into the activities of the Presidential Committee on the Northeast Initiative, a mandate being fulfilled. A trip to the Yankari Games Reserve and Safari in Bauchi State brings you closer to nature. And the Oshun Oshogo Festival, our culture, our pride. Professor Adiku, the Vice Chancellor, University of Abuja, tells us what it means to manage a university, plus our regular features, star profile, media issues, relationships, young minds, entertainment, sports, and lots more. Pick your copy now at the vendors or at every NTA station nationwide. TV Guide, still your indispensable companion.
This is Good Morning Nigeria, focusing on Nigeria at 57, search for peace and unity. And this background report by Oyemi Ajayi will set the stage for the conversation yesterday. Let's look at what we discussed yesterday and we're continuing today. Let's now listen to, once again, to the issue in point as presented by Oyemi Ajayi.
At times like these, when past leaders of the country come together with a song like this, the message tends to resonate something important, which is unity. The independence of Nigeria on the 1st October 1960 symbolizes the readiness of Nigerians to live indivisibly and in harmony in order to have a better future. Definitely, the country like Nigeria, which boasts of about 250 ethnic groups, has a whole lot of potentials and natural resources to make her self-sufficient. Since 1999 to date, Nigeria has succeeded in transiting from one democratic dispensation to another, even from one political party to the other. Over the years, Nigeria has been the toast from many countries in the quest of doing business and enhancing relations due to her huge potentials. The country has had its fair share of security challenges, economic dislocations, and social upheaval. In spite of these, the country has remained united. This unity, the president in his independence broadcast says the country will never give away.
Recent calls on restructure, quite proper and a legitimate debate, has let in highly irresponsible groups to call for dismemberment of the country. We cannot and we will not allow such advocacy.
As the country marks 57 years of independence, how far so far, and how can the nation move forward from where it is to where it ought to be?
Pray to God to continue to grant us that peace and unity that this country dearly deserves.
God created Nigeria as we are, and God doesn't make a mistake. We should thank God for that.
We must continue to work hard to make sure that we achieve the desired results.
Now, we're now being joined in the studio by Honorable Hassan Ado Dogoa, Chief Whip, Nigeria's House of Representatives. So you're welcome to Good Morning Nigeria once again.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Good morning.
You are a regular on our shows, especially when we talk about national issues.
Thank you so much.
And again, Senator Ita Enang, he is the Senior Special Advisor to the President on National Assembly in the Senate, actually. Now, good to have you join us on Good Morning Nigeria today. He's been a senator, and he understands how it plays out. Cliff.
Well, still we have other guests, and of course we're going to Jos. In Jos we have Professor Aldo Gambo of the Department of Political Science. Is indeed Nice to have you join us. Professor Gambo, thanks for joining us on Good Morning Nigeria.
It's my pleasure to be here.
We're also expecting the Senior Special Assistant to the President on Media and Publicity, Office of the Vice President, Laolu Akonde. We hope he will join us in the course of this conversation. But gentlemen, we'll kickstart this because it's something that we started yesterday, trying to reflect on Nigeria at 57 and try to see how we can search for peace and unity. And a whole lot at 57 is Nigeria where we want it to be. Let's start with Dogoa.
Thank you so much, my dear brother. Let me, at the first instance, congratulate Nigerians and Nigeria too for once again achieving this milestone, Nigeria at 57. And to take your question, I would like to maybe sound a little different. When you say whether Nigeria is where we should be or where we are, I want to say very clearly that in my opinion, it's like if you want to look at the development process of the country you call Nigeria at the moment, regrettably, for me, it's like a kind of an acrobatic history. Acrobatic because if you remember the kind of values set by our forefathers, Nigerians of those days who conceived what Nigeria should be, I want to believe it's like we had a very sound foundation, very sound footing, where Nigerians of those days thought of Nigeria as a dream that will keep Nigeria as a united front, united country, where you have much to say about your individualities, where you have less to say about your individualities, less to say about your differences. The kind of Nigeria our forefathers envisaged in the past, I want to believe, was one Nigeria that you don't look at yourself first as a Hausa person. Never look at yourself as a Fulani man. It's a Nigeria that you have no Yorubas, you also don't have the Igbos. A Nigeria envisaged by our forefathers, as far as I'm concerned, was one that should have all of us calling themselves Nigerians. But unfortunately, with this kind of foundation, at a level, I don't know how we got it wrong anyway, but at a level, it's like this foundation or this commitment to keeping one united Nigeria with less emphasis on these kind of differences began to backslide. And it was at that point of backsliding that we now find ourselves in this kind of mess. I want to say clearly, if I should give you an answer, a straightforward answer to your question, that we are obviously not where we are supposed to be.
Okay, Itaina will come in here with the same question.
Yes, he will, but let's get to Jos, because the man in Jos is not a politician. That's Professor Audu Gambo. But Audu Gambo, the checkered political history of this country cannot be overemphasized. We started it out in 1960 with a system, the parliamentary system we called it. Shortly before the war and after the war, we had the military interregnum. Now, my question is the same question, but I want you to come from the historical point of view to get at where we actually got it wrong. The question remains, what is the problem with Nigeria? Is it the political system? Is it the military interregnums that came in between the 80s and early 90s? And is it the present political system, which is presidential political system? So what is our problem, Professor Gambo?
Thank you very much for that question. Let me start by responding very quickly to the statement made by my co-discussant, and that's Honorable Dogwa in the Abuja zone. He said he wondered where we got it wrong. And I said, look, the problem of ethnicity, the problem of religious difference and all whatnot, the social construction of Nigerian politicians. And I say this without any fear of contradiction. Politicians are the ones fueling all these divisive tendencies. Nigerians are very productive people, very enterprising, very progressive-minded. Unfortunately, the kind of politicians that we have in this country are not ones that can really bring about, sustainable development of this country, because they manipulate all kinds of variables just in furtherance of their sectional and parochial interests. And I think that is the fundamental problem Nigeria is, grappling with at the moment. Let me respond very quickly to your question. Truly, at independence, Nigeria was indeed a promising country. Nigeria promised to be a regional power, a very influential, actor in world affairs. Unfortunately, like I said, even if we have the most perfect constitution in this country, as long as the attitude of our politicians remains the same, truly speaking, we'll be blaming the constitution and not ourselves, not our attitude. You look at it, people are now talking about restructuring and all kinds of things. Yes, it's not a bad idea, truly, because every system, every social system needs adjustment once in a while. But the way it is coming now, I look at it as more of an attempt to divert attention from the anti-graft war. Yes, there may be very genuine reasons why we must restructure, but the potency this agitation has assumed, shows clearly that, look, there's something beneath it beyond what we are seeing. And so I think our politicians need to adjust their attitude, actually. It's more of an attitudinal problem. Even, are we faring better in the presidential system? To me, as a person, I would rather advocate for a return to the parliamentary system. Let us go back to the parliamentary system, because the presidential system has been grossly abused, and it shows clearly that we are not in a hurry to adjust in order to make it work effectively for the sustainable progress of this country. That is one. The idea that the military interregnum was a problem, I don't look at it that way, truly. Look at the experiences of countries like Singapore, the Koreas, and all whatnot. At various points in time, they were under dictatorship, what I call benevolent dictatorship that brought them to where they are today. Look at Singapore especially. At one point, Singapore was importing water, but now look at what has become of Singapore today. It's all about vision. It's all about an agenda, progressive agenda for the country. Unfortunately, what we have in Nigeria, we have a political class that is visionless, a political class that is only concerned about its own narrow interests and not the interests of the generality of Nigerians. And let me be very honest. Looking at Nigeria the way we are today, I can say we have only two ethnic groups in Nigeria, and that is the masses and the elites. The elites are busy trying to divide the masses along ethno-regional and all kinds of, parochial tendencies, just for them to find accommodation, to continue to dominate the space, to continue to mismanage, our common patrimony. And that is the reason why I attribute, in a fundamental sense, the existing problems Nigeria is grappling with to the political class. Until the political class set out to really move this country forward, until the political class shed itself of all these unprogressive tendencies, Nigeria will just be wobbling. Unfortunately, at 57, we should be thinking of catching up with countries like United States of America, United Kingdom and all whatnot. Unfortunately, we are still grappling with basic problems of NEPA, power, roads and all the roads we have in this country, 99% was constructed by the military. And so Nigeria experienced greater development under the military than what we're experiencing in a so-called democratic environment. And that is my own personal opinion.
Okay, we'd like to say special thanks there to Professor Gambo in Jos. He tried to be historical and political in his analysis, dividing the country along the line of the masses and the elite. And from 1960 to current time, when we had the parliamentary system, Adedogo also said that at foundation we had good foundation, but then people trailed and contributed to the development of the nation selflessly. and all that. So let's come back to Itaina, because we have political administrations from 1960 to present, civilian and this thing. At 57, do you think Nigeria is where it should be?
Well, I would say that Nigeria is not where it should be, but we've made quite some substantial progress. I say so because if you consider countries that were independent at the same time with Nigeria, and the resources that those countries had, my friend and brother in Jos station has mentioned Singapore and other countries. I dare to mention India. I dare to mention Malaysia. I dare to mention most other countries. Definitely we are not where we should be, but we are definitely not where we were. Now, if you think of, he's talked of misconceptions. I want to say that the problem is that most people who go into political office do not go into political or public office for the purpose of serving the public or the people. Some of them go into political office for the purpose of the pie. What can I get from there? How can I enrich myself? How can I prepare for the next election? How can I enrich and make sure that my people, and what it means by his people are the immediate community he comes from. First is immediate family, second is immediate community, third it is the others around himself. Not the public interest. I apologize to say this, but I have been in the legislature and I have seen the turnover of legislature and legislators, the turnover of government and government officials. Most has been, what do I get for myself? What do I, and not what do I leave behind in the system? Again, the followership, the public, sometimes do not ask you of what have you done for the purpose of serving and leaving a legacy for the generality of the people. They say, what have you brought for me? What have you done for me? Not how have you improved the system? Be that as it may, I believe we got it wrong when we suddenly had oil money immediately after the Civil War. And there was this saying that the problem is not money, but what to do with money, how to use it. I mean, what to do with it. Many people we got money, but we did not invest where we ought to have invested. We did not invest in education. We did not invest in technology. We did not invest in infrastructure. Yes, the government of 1979 to 1985, 88, 87, 88, tried so much to bring so much of industries and facilities that were in other countries that should have been a basis for our development. But immediately after that, we started experiencing the slide of our currency, the collapse of those industries, the trade in money. Our money became not a currency of value for other purposes, but we started trading in our currencies. Therefore, we are not where we were or where we should be, but we are definitely, certainly making progress. I want to also say that the coming of democracy has also added value, because in democracy you can stand up and ask questions. The legislature can ask the executive, what have you done with our money? And the executive can say, where is the law? Or legislature, why are you behaving the way you are behaving with public resources allotted to you? Right or wrong, there is a check and balance. But I don't think that we should condemn ourselves. We should celebrate. I think one of the greatest achievements in the last years in the last 17 years has been keeping the country together. Keeping the country together because it is under the civilian democracy that you have the freedom to stand up and say, I want to have my own Odua People's Congress, MASOP, the different ethnic IPOD, and so on, because of freedom. Yet, the country and the leadership and democracy and all the institutions have always said, we are better together, we will not. And I go to congratulate His Excellency, Mr. President, for this stern and very on-point address he gave to the nation, because he took us back and brought the country and the unity of the country back to the table. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. All these perspectives to what transpired, reasons why we are not where we're supposed to be, could be attributed to bad governance. And how does that translate to the instability in the country? Because we are searching for unity, and that has eluded this country for a while. I want to bring in Honorable Dodogoa here. What is that issue that making it not difficult for us to have peace and unity that this country needs?
I think, like I've said initially, the problem has been that of looking at yourself first before the nation. When you are talking of a polity that is built on what you call a federal system, a federal platform, Nigerians or our people should begin to look at it from that kind of macro perspective. Macro in the sense that look at yourself as Nigerian first, then all other things follow. But as long as we continue in this kind of manner, whereby I look at myself as a Dogwa person, Tudunwada person, Kano person, a Hausa man, and every other person looks at himself in this manner, then obviously there will be problem. Good governance, as you say, good governance can only come into being when you have that nationalistic commitment in you. That whatever you do, either in office or in your private businesses, you have the commitment and the belief in what you call the Nigerian nation. And like I said, we got it wrong because we did not decide, we were not prepared to build on the foundation, the very reliable foundation laid by our forefathers. And as long as we want to have that dream right, we must have to go back to that level and really build from that kind of thing what that was predicated by the forefathers of our own beloved country. Nigeria was never an accident. I also want to share the same opinion with many Nigerian leaders who said that our being into a nation like this was not accidental. It was not a mistake. And it can never be a mistake. And I want to believe if we want to get it right, we must have to go back to the drawing board. To the drawing board in the sense that we analyze the whole thing holistically. My dear brother Eta Enang, the contributor from Jos, was trying to be one-sided in an analysis. One-sided because he was like apportioning more of blames to the political sector of the country or to the political elites. But the problem we have in the nation, I believe with him in the analysis he made about the political elite of the country, but he has to also be open up enough. It is a holistic problem. The followership, Nigerian people, as far as the political space is concerned, will also have a call to answer. A call to answer because their attitude has to change. Just as we want the attitude of Nigerians politicians to change, the attitude of Nigerians must also change. Because both of us, both the political elite and the masses, as you call them, are component of the democratic system we're operating. And as long as we want to have a change in the democratic process, certainly every element, every component of that democratic system has to change and operate on the same page.
But he says that people that have the apparatus of power, he is particularly concerned about those who have the apparatus of power and who are using that power, first of all, in the distribution of scarce resources. And again, you talked about me and me first and stuff. So that's what he's talking about. That's why he's blaming it on the elites.
Of course, I understand what he was saying. But the point I want to make clearer is the fact that it's a holistic problem, a problem that has to do with the elites, and it also had its own share to do with the masses. Because even the elites that you call the political elites are one component that respond directly to the sensitivity of the system entirely, to the expectation of the society. Just like Eta Enang has mentioned, as long as you as a politician will continue to be guided by the expectations of your electorate, which of course the expectations itself is wrong-footed. The expectations of the people has not always been a developmental one. Somebody will be at home when election comes, he will expect how much are you capable to put on the table for him to even get you back to your office. When Nigerians will always look forward towards materialistic gains, not development and the development of infrastructures and community-based development, then certainly we cannot get it right. It has to be a holistic review of the whole system where the electorate will have the right expectations and those in positions of power will also respond to those rightful expectations of the Nigerian people.
Okay, we'll go back to Jos. Thank you, Dogowa there. We go back to Jos, where we have Professor Audu Gambo, because we're talking about the unity and stability of our great nation, Nigeria. And this has continued to elude us, you know, over the years. From time of independence, we appear to have gotten it right at a point, and at some point, we lose that. And one will ask, why? Why can't we achieve this unity, or take for granted the unity and stability of our great nation? What actions or inactions on both divide, leadership and followership, could be held responsible for this? Professor Gambo, can you look at it from that perspective?
Thank you very much. I think the problems of unity and stability in Nigeria could be attributed to two critical factors. One is the leadership question. When you have a leadership that does not inspire the followers, when you have a leadership that is not exemplary in conduct, when you have a leadership that likes to operate in an opaque manner, in other words, in a way that people outside the cycle will not see through clearly, then certainly that is not the kind of leadership that will bring about a united and progressive nation like Nigeria. And secondly, when you have the people, the followers, who have been plunged into abject poverty, very painful poverty, then certainly you don't expect such a followers to begin to think developmentally other than what Honorable Dogwa has said earlier. They will begin to make personal demands on the officials, their elected representatives, because you have plunged them into the poverty condition, and of course, you don't expect them to do otherwise other than to find a way of surviving at all costs. And I think these are the two fundamental problems we have with respect to unity and stability in Nigeria. When you have a leadership that is not just, a leadership that is not equitable at the level of distribution of scarce resources of the land, a leadership that is grossly insensitive to the yearnings and aspirations of the people, then of course you don't expect people to live peacefully or to see themselves as united. And one point I have mentioned earlier is the role of the political elite, and I will continue to say this because they have manipulated all kinds of primordial tendencies just to widen the gaps, you know, between them and the people. When they meet there, they interact, they socialize, they drink wine, they wine and dine together. But when they are in the midst of their people, they begin to feed them with all kinds of negative tendencies. And I think that is largely what is responsible for the situation we're experiencing in Nigeria. If you ask me this issue of restructuring people are talking about, everybody seems to be asking for restructuring, but what fundamentally, what precisely is this restructuring all about? Are we going back to the 1963 regional arrangements? Are we talking about devolution of? I think the advocates of this restructuring should be explicit enough in terms of telling us the direction of their thinking, what they expect the country to do for us to have, you know, enduring peace and stability within the country. But as it is now, it's like 2019 is around the corner. And so they are just trying to satisfy certain interests, you know, by advocating for restructuring. Why now? That's the question. Why now? All this while, we have not seen the need to restructure. Now we are beginning to, that's why I said there is something beneath this restructuring of a thing. And perhaps my guess is as good as anybody's guess. It may not be unconnected with the fight, you know, against corruption, because minus corruption, Nigerian politicians will just be like fish taken out of water, and you know it cannot survive outside aquatic environment. And I think that is a fundamental problem we have. Restructuring in itself is not a bad idea, but those who are advocating for restructuring should come out clearly to tell us the nature of the restructuring they want the country, to adopt, and not to hide under all kinds of incomprehensible, assumptions and all that. We need to be very explicit when we are trying to reconstruct the country. Those who amalgamated Nigeria in 1914, the Northern and Southern Protectorate, they didn't make mistake. People are blaming Lord Lugard for, even if Lord Lugard had not amalgamated Nigeria, I think we were marching steadily towards that direction. If we were allowed to move at our own pace, we are going to end up what Lord Lugard had made it easier for us. And so the idea that nobody was consulted, all that, I think that one is just, again, usual statement by politicians just to make a point. But I think Nigeria, the way it is, all that we need is to harness the various resources that every part of this country is endowed with. Look at the southeast, palm oil from there, all these forestry products. South, we have the oil resource and all whatnot. Southwest, we have the cocoa and all other, mineral resources around that. Look at the northwest, the northeast, the north central, and all whatnot. So if only we can promote this regional complementarity, I don't think any part of this country can claim to do better than what we are doing when it is, alone.
All right. Thank you, Professor Audu. You ended by mentioning palm oil from the southeast. These are resources from different parts of the country. And remember that they blossomed, during the regional era. That's a show for another day. But let's come back to Abuja here. West Senator Enang is here. I wanted to make comment on this issue of unity, which is eluding Nigeria, because you've been in power for a while, especially from legislative, angle. Now, you mentioned that there are ethnic groupings or ethnic associations occasioned by the fact that we have freedom, that people can now form associations that are often become the voice of such ethnic groups. Is that healthy? Because some of these ethnic organizations are there to see how they can bring succor to their people, to see how the people can contribute, equitably in governance, for instance, because these are where also all these agitations are coming from. Does that make for unity and stability of this country?
Thank you very much. But please permit me to make a little intervention on the submission of my brother from Jos Station. I want to say he has said that the elite plunged the masses into poverty, and that there is opaqueness there is opaque governance, and that there is unjust distribution of scarce resources. I want to say that when you're talking of opaque governance, you should be able to say, is it at the federal level, is it at the state level, is it at the local government level? At the federal level, you don't have what you could call opaque governance, because one, the budget is publicly presented, the budget is online, and you can access it online. Now, the budget is publicly presented by the president, and every member of the legislature has a copy. When it is passed, every member of the public has a copy. Online and hard copies, you can see what was presented by the executive, you can see what was presented, what was passed. You can ask for it, a hard copy, you can just access it online. Draw attention difference between that and what happens at the state level and the local government. Now, I am aware of several states in this country that do not have a budget. Some, you will hear that the House of Assembly has passed a budget. You will ask for the vote and proceedings of the budget as passed by the House of Assembly. You cannot find it. Then when they say the governor has assented to the budget, you cannot find a copy of the budget as assented to by the governor. If you ask, you are asked as the enemy, that you are said to be antagonizing the governor of that state. At that level, and projects are implemented not as in the budget, but at the will and caprice of some of the governor that is in those states. So you have to draw attention between level and what happens at the state level. And the people should know that there is difference between, we're operating a federal system of government and not a unitary, where the president answers to at all levels. Yes, he takes responsibility, but there is money at the state level. Let the public rise and ask. Because what seems to happen now is that the public seems to say that at every stage that anything is wrong, at the local government, in the ward, and everywhere, it is the federal government, not accepting that money has been given to the state and the local government. And of course, sorry, on the last point on that, you say that the public is, they make the public poor, and there is unjust distribution of scarce resources. I want to say that the public is not made poor. What the government does is not to take money and distribute to individuals. But what this government does is that there is a segment of the society that what is, I will use my word with a lot of apology, the poorest of the poor, or what you could call the vulnerable. You know, it makes money available to them for just to lift them up. But what the government is to do is to provide enabling environment for businesses to thrive, give you tax holidays, make security available, provide for security, provide for infrastructure, provide for a loan facility and so on, and individuals take advantage of it. And finally, when you talk of, I think you talk of unjust distribution of scarce resources. At the federal level, the budget, the scarce resources is distributed by the legislature. It is proposed by the executive. What road will be done in the south-south, southeast, southwest, northwest, north-central? What power, what aspect of power will be done? How will agriculture be funded? How will we? So the scarce resources is done by the Senate of 360 of 108 members, 3 per state. House of Representatives 360 representing all so there is no opaque. Now coming back to your question. Yes, the ethnic agitations. I think it is good. Good because each ethnic group has what it calls as its core values, its demands, its requests. Yes, they have their representatives at the National Assembly, at the state, at the Senate and House of Representatives. Now, they agitate at the ethnic groupings still exist. The militant bodies still exist. The militant bodies or the militant groups, quote unquote, that there's no more militancy, I'm sure, I apologize to them, act as the, quote unquote, the army, while the other groups act as the elite. Now, they articulate what the real problems of that area is, and then they make sure they trade it with other areas. The South-South, as it were, they started under the democracy in 1999 to say, look, we are not well treated. We produce the resources of the country. Look at our environment. And that was marketed to the entire country, and we in the National Assembly considered it. Let me give kudos to the Nigerianness in the composition of the National Assembly, because they look at the whole country as one. They looked at it and look, what do we do for these people? First, they gave the South-South the Niger Delta Development Commission, raised the amount available. Now, later, in 2004, 2003, they gave the abolished the onshore-offshore dichotomy. Third, they now gave the Ministry of Niger Delta. Fourth, they gave the amnesty program. Fifth, they gave the Ministry of Niger Delta. This is part of the product of agitation. Now, the Southeast agitated and said, look, we're not well treated. The government looked and said, look, this person deserves. And as it were, they were almost permanently seated the office of the President of the Senate, the Secretary to the government. Now, the Southwest agitated. Yes, they were the President of the country for 8 years. There was the OPC. They all demanded. The North agitated, and they look at the vast lands, look at their problem, look at the encroachment of the desert, and look at the agricultural potentials, they were all attended. So these ethnic groups and ethnic agitations and ethnic stand-ups are very necessary. Yet, it must be contained within and must be carried out within the context of the law, so that you don't exceed your bounds. And that is why the government, whenever anybody stands up, you can ask for what you want, but not dismembership, not the dismemberment of the country.
Okay, Senator Itaina, that's a good point you've made there, not to dismember the country, but you can make agitations and get attention of government to the challenges that affects you. Let's go to Honorable Dogowa, because we're talking about Nigeria. And you are very much aware that there still exists today mutual suspicion and ethnic jingoism among Nigerians. And I know one political scientist will look at society in a very peculiar way, that it is not necessarily the consciousness of an individual that directs his behavior, but the societal norms, morals, and values and directs his behavior. So what happens in society, the actions or inactions of those in leadership and even those that constitute the society tend to affect the reaction of a particular individual in that direction. So why would they look at it from that perspective? We know that the trouble with Nigeria, according to Chinua Achebe, is placed on the shoulders of leaders. So can you try to look at it from this perspective, please?
You see, like I've always said, the problem or the subject under discussion now, as far as this discourse is concerned, I want to believe is about unity, peace, and mutual coexistence of our people. And these are factors that obviously are social and psychological. It is when you are able to even secure these values that you now begin to think of other sorts of development, technological development, educational development, and all sorts of developments you may imagine for the country can only be sustained and secured under a reliably created, mutually concerted platform where every Nigerian consider each other as a brother and also brothers keepers. But if we must tell ourselves the truth, my dear brother, the fact is that as long as we continue to look at ourselves from those individualistic dispositions, then obviously Nigeria will not get it right. I want to say this without any fear of contradiction, that the problem we have can only be checked if Nigerians will be prepared, both leadership and followership, if we can only be prepared to think Nigeria, operate Nigeria, live Nigeria, and believe in the country that we call Nigeria. But as long as, like
while holding to your point,
yes,
the point is, to what extent would you say the political class play to the sentiments of things that divide us and raise mutual suspicion? Because during campaigns, a lot of issues are raised. You try to place this person is from here, this person belongs to this religion, and a whole lot, come to the forefront.
Yes, and that has been the problem all along. Nigerians, especially the political class, had always taken the opportunity of these divisions, these kind of differences, take advantage of tribal jingoism, take advantage of religious differences, and campaign among their people. And this has continuously been playing the role of dividing the country. And we can get it right. Like, the reason why I said we can get it right because at the moment, especially at this critical situation, whereby people are agitating even for restructuring, I want to believe if we want to get it right, it's not only about political or economic restructuring. We have to start from what I call psychological and social restructuring.
And mental restructuring.
Mental restructuring. We have to restructure our mentality. Believe Nigeria first. Accept to even build the country Nigeria and sustain what our forefathers have built for us. So in this case, therefore, it's not about the political class setting the pace. No. It's for us to collectively look at Nigeria as an entity that we must have to keep one.
But
and if we will
there has to be
succeed,
examples. Examples have to be set.
I can agree with you. The very good story, the good news about it is that at this critical period, we have something that we can hold on to as a very good example. And that thing is no other than the blessings we have got from Allah to have an exemplary president. We have a committed leader, a leader that is generally believed to be a Nigerian leader, maybe because of his professional military background in the past. He fought the Civil War, and he coincidentally now became our president under a democratic disposition. I want to believe if we can all rally around an anchor as one indivisible nation. Those of us in the legislature, for instance, in the recent, in the recent past, very recently, in a few weeks ago, when issues of this nature came up, we agreed that the body language, the disposition, the natural disposition of our president has to be supported. And that was why even when arguments were brought about issues of legalities, formalities, about maybe declaring the IFOB as a terrorist group or other, we said no. You can only talk of Nigerian constitution. You can only talk of Nigerian laws when you have Nigerian federation in the first place in existence. But when that entity you call Nigeria, when that federation, when that nation is a threat, national interest is also a threat, you cannot imagine of any Nigerian constitution. That is why we have agreed to continuously support Mr. President. And I want to tell you with all sense of commitment and responsibility that Nigeria's National Assembly will continue to give Mr. President this support, this backing, so that Nigeria can be sustained as an indivisible nation. And that is where we can take the cue from, because you have an exemplary leader, you have a reliable leader, you have a national leader who is committed to the existence of the country you call Nigeria.
All right, thank you very much. Yeah, thank you. It's very, interesting, issues relating to our conversation this morning. And let's return to jails once more. Professor Gambo, we are talking about mutual suspicion here among the different ethnic groups in this country, which also brings up the issue of agitation and what have you. Some school of thought say that Nigeria is practicing a democratic governance with unitary approach, because the power is at the huge power is at the center, and it trickles down to the state government, to the state and local government. And as the Thailand said earlier on, that these levels of government, they all have different rules to play. The government in the state level should be able to see how the scarce resources will be equitably distributed among the 3 central zones of each state. And when mutual suspicion is common in the hearts of different ethnic groups that make up a nation, then there's no stability and unity, which is what we are looking out for. So, Professor Gambo, in this connection, is there fairness among the ethnic groups in the country? In your own opinion, is there fairness? What is really fueling this agitation? Because it's unending. It's becoming perennial.
Yeah, I think mutual suspicion among the diverse ethnic groups in Nigeria is to be expected. And like I've said earlier, and which I still maintain my position, that the space, the public space is still characterized by opaqueness to some extent. Tell me, for instance, why we are not speculate about the earnings of an average person in the National Assembly, when up till now, even when people push them, to open up, in that respect, they have still remained silent on it. Why would people not speculate? Why would people not be suspicious of what is happening within the legislative arm of government? That is one. Secondly, mutual suspicion is to be expected when there is no inclusivity, in the governance process. When some people feel excluded from the mainstream socio-economic and political affairs of the country, when there's some interest, believe that, look, the system operates, to the benefits of just some few, excluding the vast majority. Definitely you expect the various ethnic groups to be suspicious of each other, because one group is thinking that, look, this government belongs to a particular ethno-regional zone. And so the tendency is for the group that is being perceived as the beneficiary of this government, the group that is feeling itself excluded will naturally be suspicious. And so you find that kind of tendency foiling all kinds of divisive tendencies. Like a very good example, for instance, the Igbos are agitating for Biafra. It's not because of anything, because going by what they have advanced as reasons for such agitation is on the basis of what they believe as the exclusion, the marginalization they have suffered, in the existing Nigerian, federation, and therefore the tendency is to seek to be independent, to seek to have self-determination so that they can take their destinies into their own hands. And it's the same all across, actually. Even the three frontline hegemonic ethnic nationalities, the Yorubas, the Igbos, and the Hausas, they tend to cry louder, even than the minorities that are really feeling the weight of all these discriminatory practices, in governance. What happens at the federal level is unfortunate that because of the military interregnum, the military constructed Nigerian Federation after its own image, this hierarchical order, system. You have the federal, the state, and then the local. It shouldn't be so in a genuine federal setup. What you have in a federation is that all the federating units are coordinated and independent. They need to cooperate, at certain levels in order to achieve common purposes. But when you have the federal becoming too powerful, the federal having all the substantive powers, look at in the Constitution, you have 68 items alone on the exclusive legislative list. And all of them are very weighty, items on that list. And so how do you expect the state to survive? Secondly, that is not enough for the state to underperform. The states have become just like political recruitment grounds, and you find all kinds of characters, people who cannot even manage their families, really, aspiring to be governors, aspiring to be this, to be that, all because they think that, look, at the end of every month, they rush to Abuja to collect handouts, and where that is not forthcoming, they begin to plead with civil servants, public, the citizens to be patient, as if their coming to power is essentially dependent on, Abuja, because you need to generate resources. That's why you are a leader. A leader should have tremendous capacity for strategic thinking. Think out solutions to the challenges of development within your domain. Most of them, unfortunately, or regrettably, they don't have that capacity. And so they look up to Abuja all the time. And even when the resources from Abuja are coming in, again, the tendency is for them to mismanage, either to privatize them or to misallocate or to, use it in such a way that it does not achieve the purpose of development for the people. And so I think, fundamentally speaking, we need to really adjust our attitude. We need to adjust our attitude. If we must remain a one indivisible and corporate, entity, we must promote inclusivity. We must promote equity, equitable development all across. You don't favor a particular section to the exclusion of the others or to the disadvantage of others. When I say this, I'm not referring to the current government. I'm not particular about this current government. But historically, that has been the tendency, that has been the trend. And we need to stop that if we really want to promote peace, if we really want to promote unity, because a sense of unity is psychological. I can only have a stake in the survival of a country when I feel that I am part and parcel of that society. And how do you give me that feeling? You give me that feeling by giving me my legitimate entitlement, giving me my own due, my own share, so that at least I can feel, yes, I have a sense of belonging and inclusion in the affairs of the country. Anything short of that, I think we are merely deceiving ourselves.
Thank you, Professor Gambo there, because you went political as a political scientist, talked on political economy, talked about allocation of scarce resources, because politics involves all the processes of getting into power, to determine who gets what, when, and how in the allocation of scarce resources. And you're talking about equitable distribution of these very fair. And Nigerians have been joining us before we come to Itaina. Let's carry Nigerians along who joined us through our Twitter handle, NTAGMN. And we have first Cecilia Okoroma. History is there to show how passionate our forefathers strongly believed in united Nigeria. We must not let it die. Kyrian.
Now, Stanley says the system should be cleansed in such a way that the youths will believe in it, rather than thinking that they are not.
And Dele Jack Solomon writing, we must prioritize welfare of the people, economic liberation, good governance, equity, and justice as driving forces to deal with national agitations.
From Law Alpha, supporting the belief of President Buhari will go a long way to refining Nigeria because he believes in transparent and selfless regime.
And Sunny Michael Omokaji writes, we are more in population, but deficit in infrastructural development and job creation. We need mental revolution. We must tell ourselves the bitter truth that those who have mismanaged Nigeria have nothing to offer Nigeria.
Now, Delajak Solomon says, as we celebrate the 57th year of independence, we urge all Nigerians to make peace and unity their primary concern. Say no to disunity of Nigeria.
And James Afolayan rising to be sincere with ourselves. Professor Aldo from Jos Studio have said it all. Solution should be taken from his analysis. Thank you.
And Jacob says, attitude of Nigerians is a basic factor for the country's development. Some Nigerians are suffering because of their negative attitude.
And Kolo Ibrahim writes, distrust and political elitism, including endemic corruption, have been the bane of development of Nigeria since independence.
And from Sami, we still have ancestral ideas in our minds, and our political structure has different reasons.
And Dele Jackson Solomon also came in here saying the judicious management of Nigeria resources, coupled with the spirit of patriotism and unshaken hope, will take us to the promised land.
And from Law Alpha, I sincerely believe that money politics will continue to rubbish the growth of this country, as it is synonymous with corruption. We have many institutions in the country, but selfish and personal interests of politicians have rubbished their benefits.
And Ode Samuel writing that Nigerians need to agree to live together, not to force unity on anybody with disunity hearts of selfishness. Well, you've had the contributions, Senator Itaina. Professor Gambo has elucidated on a whole lot of points on the sharing the allocation of scarce resources and the equitable distribution of these resources. To what extent do you think we're getting it right or getting it wrongly? And how should we do going forward to address the agitations by all ethnic groups, even those on religious coloration?
I want to say that I think we should harness the intellectual capacity of all Nigerians, particularly the academics, to accept one thing. And when they accept it, it will be better for Nigeria. I think all arsenal of governance is directed at the federal government. I think I wouldn't be tired of saying this. But the Constitution basically says, look, there shall be one Nigeria. And then when federation account money is gotten, it shall be distributed among the states and the local and federal government. Federal government will take its own share. It will take it to its own National Assembly, and it will decide what will we do with the police, what will we do with the army, what will we do with the foreign affairs, what will we do with federal roads, what will we do with power. Now, state government will take its own. At the federal level, it says it should be allocated at the Federation Account Allocation Committee. That committee sits. The commissioners of finance in all the states are there. It is shared, and it is published. Now, when it gets to the states, there is the state's local government joint account. Has anybody, has any professor, has any ASU, has any...
Well, I think issues have been raised along that line.
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
That's why the National Assembly is taking steps to ensure the independence of the local
that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying, that, please, the academics, all the social critics, should also make sure that every state also, as we do at the federal level, and it is announced, they go and do it because it is in the constitution. It's not in the law of the states that there shall be state, local government joint account. Federal government, state government, bring your own money there. Bring your local government money. Sit and share and announce. That's one. Number two, Prof has talked of exclusion or exclusion. I want to say that that is why we have the Federal Character Act, Federal Character Commission, that in every aspect of national life, in every aspect of even distribution of federation of federal project, that is what the Federal Character Commission now calls Mandate 2. I think they're about to go and look at that area now. That is how they've looked at how federal offices and posts and positions are shared. That is how. Now, I want to say that we should not concentrate only at the federal level. Now, finally on this, sir. Okay, in your
no, I wanted to conclude so that we can...
You can not concentrate at the federal level too. Now, at the level of managing the economy generally, the federal government is not overbearing. The federal government does not breathe down on the states. That is why the Constitution introduces the National Economic Council, chaired by the Vice President, and all the governors are members of the National Economic Council. Now, when the economic policies are done and executed and are conceived and approved at that level, the federal government will implement its own. How far does the states go down to implement their own?
All right, sir. Thank you, because the time is running out. We are on what is being done well or what's not being done at all. Let me come to you. This issue of constitution that Centennial has mentioned several times, but the National Assembly also believes that this constitution should be amended because it's not all inclusive. There are lacunas, if you like, in that constitution that making it not just impracticable, but is not impacting positively on the people. Let me take, for example, the issue of the federal government taking a huge chunk of what this nation is making, and now distribute to the states, for instance, for them to now implement their own budget with allocation. As Professor Gambo pointed out, that is quite huge, and that it is not properly being managed at the federal level, and that is what is reflecting in the states. For instance, salaries are not not paid, and all of that. And he also said that true federation means that the component units will have to have some level of freedom, and that's not practiced here. What's practiced here is unitary, although democratic, in the way it's presented. So, what is the impact of the legislature in all of this? How would you now try to get things done, or rather assist the federal government or the governments in the country at all levels get things done better from the legislative angle?
I think
as a closing thoughts, because time is not our friend.
I think from the legislative point of view as an institution, and coincidentally, I also served in the constitutional review process. I want to believe that the document we call the supreme document of this country, which is the Constitution, of course, can never be imagined to be 100% perfect. And that is why within it is entailed that it can be reviewed. And that is why, as an institution, we have always subjected the Constitution to a review at every session, at every given session of the National Assembly. And that is what we have just concluded. But the mistake we are making is that sometimes when we take process like this institutionally, despite the tremendous openings and windows offered to Nigerians, like huge journalists, like the other people, what do you call them, the civil society organizations, the academias, when the process was going on, so many relevant components of Nigerian societies are insensitive to what we were doing. We were left. Do
you really think so?
Of course.
Because
that's what I mean. Hold it,
please.
People are becoming so insensitive while the process was on, believing that we could do it all. No one of us is an angel in the National Assembly. That is why we offered what we call a public session, public hearing, for Nigerians from various shades of life to come and contribute their own quota as to what Nigerian constitution should be. But I want to say without any fear of contradiction, while this process was on, so many Nigerians were very, very insensitive to the process. So many things were supposed to have been discussed, contributions taken from the Nigerian people, but we were left alone to operate. And at the same time, even when you talk of the issue of the restructuring and some of the, I don't want to believe it's unwieldy, the enormous powers tied at the center. It is tied, the powers are tied at the center, believing the fact that we came from a background where we were divided.
Is it not unitary in nature?
It's not unitary at all. Because the federal government, the center, which you think is taking too much of resources, is also saddled with a lot of responsibilities. A situation whereby you brought together different components with different backgrounds, traditional, religious, and whatever. Certainly, you must have to have a strong center to be able to keep these
units. Is there no duplication of responsibility?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
Okay.
I thank God you are a political scientist. I am not also a lawyer, but I want to believe if you look at this thing from the point of cohesion, keeping Nigeria one, you must have to have these enormous powers at the center to be able to keep this divided
During the regional era.
And even the agitations, that is now all over, agitations for this, agitation for this, I want to believe, and I want to respectfully disagree with my brother for the first time, that I disagree with the fact that these agitations are healthy. They are not healthy. If you want to agitate for a better performance, like the professor has said, maybe inclusiveness, transparency, justice, and equity. But when you are agitating from the perspective of chauvinism, tribal chauvinism and jingoism, then certainly we will not get it right.
During the regional era, there was cohesion during the regional era.
Yes.
And there was healthy competition among the regions. And that's where we had the pyramid in the north, we had the red, oil in the southeast, we had the cocoa in the west. And the country was growing shortly before the Civil War.
It was growing.
So people are now asking for...
All
right, I think I have to end this debate.
No, I have to respond to this. Just a short one. Just a short one. Because the fact that we are progressing, you are talking of the regional era. We had the regional system of government, and we now progressed into the presidential system of government.
Which is inimical to development.
If the regional system was really good and was perfect, we wouldn't have graduated into this. What we need now is for us to look inward and perfect some of the challenges we have in the presidential system of government and maybe push forward, but not
you've made your point here. Even in the biggest democracy, the United States, there is agitations and all that. You know, at the World Bank, you see people agitating, you know, protesting. But we leave it there. Let's get the closing thoughts of Professor Audu Gambo. Professor Audu Gambo, on the way forward for Nigeria, you've looked at a whole lot of issues in 1 minute. We have challenge with leadership emergence process, allocation of scarce resources not being equitable and fair as expected. What is your roadmap to a united and stable nation in 1 minute?
Yeah, thank you very much. I think if we have to build a healthy, productive, socially cohesive, politically stable, and economically prosperous nation, then good governance is key, is very critical to it. And what that means is that all the component units of the existing Nigerian Federation must be given adequate sense and inclusion in the affairs of the country. No any particular section should be left, to feel excluded. No any particular section of the country should be left to begin to speculate about what is. Right now, as we are talking, someone confided in me that he paid $350,000 to secure employment for his son. Is it in the National Defense Security and Defense Corps? And I think that is not good enough for this country. And that is why people are fighting hard to cause the anti-corruption war to lose steam. And we must not lose focus in fighting corruption, because that is the #1 monster that we need to deal with to free us from this entanglement that we have found ourselves.
Professor Gambo, thank you very much. But what you have just said about somebody paying for a job has not been verified, so it's not clear now whether that's there.
And
at this point, we'd like to thank you immensely for your immense contribution to this conversation this morning. Thank you. You are indeed a professor of political science. Thank you for coming.
You are welcome. Thank you.
In 30 seconds,
I want to say
what is the way forward for Nigeria? What is the way to achieve unity and stability?
The way to achieve unity and stability is to think Nigeria and let your thought reflect Nigerian and Nigerianness. And let the states peer review each other. Let there be healthy competition among and between states. Let Lagos, Akwa Ibom, and other states study what is the strength of Kebbi, Sokoto, Maiduguri, Borno State, and let them try as much as possible to use a percentage of their federal allocation for capital projects and use a percentage of their internally generated revenue for capital for others, and let them see a month or the other that they can pay salary without federal allocation.
The need for states to exchange notes and see their areas of comparative advantages and build on that. On that note, I'd like to say special thanks to Senator Itainang, the Senior Special Advisor to the President on National Assembly Senate, for being our guest on this very program. We thank you so much.
Thank you very much, and thank you.
And of course, we'd like to extend the same goodwill to Honorable Alhassan Dogoa, the Chief Whip, Nigeria's House of Representatives, for your insightful contribution to this dialogue. We thank you so much.
Thank you so much. He's a member of this panel. He's a regular.
Actually, that's where we'll take a break. We'll be back. When we come back, we'll go to our segments, sports and others.
Nigerians. Suicide bombers are not spirits. They are not ghosts. They are human beings like you and me. They live amongst us. They are your neighbors. They are your friends today, but terrorists tomorrow. So you must know your neighbor now. Security begins with you and me. Know your neighbor. Be vigilant. Be security conscious. Report suspicious persons, objects, and movements to the police and other security agencies. The security of our nation is a duty for you and me.
If you see something, say something. Nigeria, unite against terrorism.
This message is brought to you by the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
It's about that time. States across the country coming together for one purpose, one goal. They are young. They are solution providers. The NTA ETV Children's Expo 2017, holding at the NTA Arena, Area 11, Garki, Abuja, with the theme Renewable Energy, Industrialization, Arts and Agriculture, as told